The Freedom Front Plus says it will not stop calling, or it will not call Graaff-Reinet by the town's new name, which is Robert Sobukwe. The party has urged residents of the Eastern Cape Town and all South Africans, in fact, to reject the proposed name change, calling it a clear case of cultural imperialism which erases Afrikaner history under the guise of social cohesion. Let's take this further now with Freedom Front Plus leader Dr. Corne Mulder and the Pan-Africanist Congress Secretary General Pooe. My thanks to you both, gentlemen. Thank you for being on SABC News. Let me start with you, Dr. Mulder, and tell us first why the proposed renaming of Graaff-Reinet after Robert Sobukwe is something that you find so unacceptable as the Freedom Front Plus.
Well, we see this repeat itself every 4 or 5 years just before an election. Then suddenly we have name changes to try and hide the incompetence of different local governments who couldn't deliver services to the people. And then they try to change names. And we've been at the receiving end of this now for 30 years, and I think that's been enough. My problem is not with Mr. Sobukwe. That is not the point. The point is that the town of Graaff-Reinet is a very important town. And it's not only about Graaff-Reinet. The other towns mentioned as well are just as relevant, whether it's Aberdeen, whether it's Ardendorp, or any of those, they remain just as relevant. At the moment, we have very limited resources in South Africa. Instead of doing service delivery, instead of getting the infrastructure going and creating jobs, we are trying to have this kind of tokenism, which I don't think takes anything further. We've been cooperative in this for about 30 years, but now we have had enough, and we are not going to recognize this name changes at all.
So is the issue then, Mr. Mulder, that you see this as an erasure of Afrikaner history, or that you feel that it's money that could have been better spent elsewhere? Because
It's both.
the previous point is what you reflected in your statement that I was looking at online.
No, it's both. It's both of them. You can look at any map of the Eastern Cape and you will find maybe one, almost none Afrikaans names as part of that province. So slowly but surely we are just being eradicated in that instance. And Graaff-Reinet is a town specifically with a huge impact for the Afrikaner community and for others. And it's not only important for the Afrikaner community. The jewel of a Karoo is very well known throughout South Africa and internationally. So there's no reason to tamper with that at this stage, and we will not recognize it, no.
Pooe, is changing Graaff-Reinet and calling it Robert Sobukwe Town a waste of money and the erasure of Afrikaner history in South Africa?
Definitely not. Let's look at the name Graaff-Reinet, where it derives from. It was a colonial master. The name is a combination of the colonial master and his wife. And it represents conquest. As such as the PAC, we don't believe that this change will bring about division. Instead, it will bring about inclusion. It will bring about historic justice. It is in a democratic dispensation that we must accept that colonial names must be changed as they represent our past, our painful past. It is not an erasure of history, but it's a correction of history. Graaff-Reinet will always be there in our books. People can still read about it, but it cannot be there as a name of a town. As the PAC, we don't see that way. And this thing again of costing the transformation, to say that this will cost us this much, therefore should not happen, I think it's unjustifiable and unacceptable.
Dr. Mulder, why should in democratic South Africa we retain the name of a town named after a colonial figure? Why is that appropriate, and why is it an important piece of history then for you as an Afrikaner in South Africa today?
Because it's important to us, and if you want to accommodate other communities in South Africa, you will understand that. This town was founded in 1786. It was the fourth oldest town in South Africa. That is the point from where the Great Trek basically started. And there's a long history, and there's no reason why it should be named after any individual. If you want to name it after Mr. Sobukwe, I respect Mr. Sobukwe. I think what should be done is let's erect the statue for Mr. Sobukwe in this town. But if you want to start naming it after individuals, and because Mr. Sobukwe was born there, let me give you a different name of a South African that I think is just as important, a very famous business person, an industrialist, and environmentalist who was also born in Graaff-Reinet on the 4th of October 1916, and his name is Dr. Anton Rupert. But if you want to go down that route, that is not the way to go. You can recognize the contributions of people, but the town's name is there. There is no constructive reason why that name should be changed. None whatsoever.
But is the reason not that it's tied to a dark history of repression and abuse of black South Africans in a country where they are the majority, Mr. Mulder?
Oh, no, that's irrelevant. With all due respect, that's irrelevant.
What do you mean
because
irrelevant?
Because you are the majority, you want to dominate the minority. Forget about that. That's not democracy.
No, that's
that is
not
dominance
true.
of a majority.
No.
It's not acceptable.
Let's allow him to finish, Mr. Pooe, and then I'll come to you. Go ahead, Mr. Mulder. Finish your point.
No. We can talk about dark histories. Should we change some of the traditional names there where other things happened in other communities? No, that is not the point. It's very easy just to throw this out, the dark history. No, this town has been a constructive, positive part of South Africa. It's internationally known. And now suddenly, for no reason whatsoever, the name needs to be changed. It's just to try and hide the incompetence of a local government for 4 years who couldn't deliver basic services to the people of Beyers.
Mr. Pooe, Dr. Mulder says the dark history of colonialism then is irrelevant to the conversation around renaming towns like Graaff-Reinet. I wonder then, as someone who comes from the Pan-Africanist Congress, what your historic reflection on that point will be, Mr. Pooe?
You know, it wouldn't be irrelevant if Dr. Mulder did not come and complain about this change. Him coming here and complaining about this change, it means it is relevant. That's why he does not want it to change. That's why he wants us to preserve it. You see, the history of this country and our African country should reflect who we are, should reflect what we stand for as Africans. It cannot continue to honor people who subjected us to dominance, people who subjected us to oppression. It's a painful reminder for us as Africans when we see these names continuing to be in our streets, in our towns, and everywhere else. The history of this country must reflect African heroes, must reflect those who stood for the truth, must reflect those who stood for a struggle against this colonialism. It cannot be that we continue to have these symbols that symbolized what we fought for when we were in the struggle towards democracy in this country.
Let me ask you.
True transformation. It cannot be that we continue to have all these names. I hear Dr. Mulder's argument about the dark past and all of that. All of that should be corrected. It cannot be that because we are correcting this one and then the others are being raised. Let's deal with all these issues inclusive. And the community of Graaff-Reinet, you know, when Sobukwe was alive, he even said dogs in Graaff-Reinet, even back in Afrikaans. Nobody can take that away. But the fact of the matter is that we need transformation in this country, and this represents that transformation.
Is there any space, Mr. Pooe, then for names from the colonial era, names from when the apartheid government ran this country? Do you think any of them should stay?
No, there's no place for them. There's no place, as they represent dominance. They represent apartheid. They represent oppression. They represent what we went through as Africans. Many of our people died under that system of apartheid and colonialism. Many of our people were jailed. Many of our people were hanged. And this represents that period. And we cannot have that continue. I cannot go in the streets of Graaff-Reinet where there was a colonial master who oppressed the people who stayed there. It's unacceptable. And so goes with other names that are going to be changed. And we must accept that reality. We must also accept it's a fact that Africans are the majority. It's a fact that we also have minority communities. But minority communities cannot dominate the majority in this country. It can't be correct.
So, Belite, just to remind you, I'm still on this program, if you don't mind.
I asked you 2 questions in a row, sir, and I've asked Mr. Pooe 2 questions as well. So I am keeping count. Don't worry, I can see you on my screen. Now I will ask you a question.
Look at your watch.
Let me ask you a question. Let me run it, sir. Thank you very much. My question to you is, to your point about telling South Africans, urging South Africans and the people of Graaff-Reinet not to recognize this proposed name change. Practically, what difference would that make if it takes effect? What would be the point of that protest?
It's not a protest, it's just a fact what is going to happen. Let me just state this quickly. I'm not able to hear Mr. Pooe. It is completely inaudible on my side. The fault is not on my side, so I didn't hear one single word what he basically said. I cannot respond to these arguments, unfortunately. That's not the fault on my side. And I take exception to the one way that you took one sentence that I said as if what happened in the past doesn't matter at all. That is not what I'm saying. Because if that is a logical argument, we should change each and every name throughout South Africa. The last time I checked, there was something called the Freedom Charter, for what it's worth, which says South Africa belongs to all who live in it, black and white. If something belongs to the Afrikaner and the other communities in South Africa, they should also have a say. So the fact is, you cannot just force things on other communities. They will perhaps not accept that. And we've come to the point now where we will not accept that. So you can change the name. They can put a little board there that says Robert Sobukwe Town. I don't care. I can assure you we will not accept that, and we will continue to talk about Graaff-Reinet, and that is what we will teach our children, and that is how we will do that. And I can guarantee you today, the first opportunity that we get to change the name back to Graaff-Reinet, we will make use of that change.
Will you teach your children about Robert Sobukwe?
I will teach them that he was a very important South African leader. I don't have a problem with Mr. Sobukwe. That's not the point at all. The point is you should recognize also what is important to other communities. And if I tell you tonight that Graaff-Reinet specifically is symbolically and historically a very important name and town for the Afrikaner and other communities in South Africa, then I think you should take me seriously on that. But we are no longer, you know what happened originally was, after 1994, we had a situation where, let's take, for example, the airport in Johannesburg. It was known as Jan Smuts Airport. It was then agreed, let's move away from controversial things and go for neutral names. It became Johannesburg International, only shortly thereafter to be changed to Oliver Tambo. So the point is, we are not going to accept this. We don't have to accept this, and that's not going to happen. So that's easy.
The point I was trying to respond to earlier, before you took exception to various other things, was the point of your rejection, because ultimately, if it's not going to change the renaming officially, the changing in the signage, etc., it will be Robert Sobukwe Town, whether you like it or not. And I'm curious about how then...
I don't know.
If you would let me finish, sir. You've been very keen to keep time in terms of who speaks when. If you allow me to finish, that'd be great. What I'm trying to understand is, by doing or taking this route, who does that help, and is it constructive in a town like Graaff-Reinet, where I would imagine even the people who live there have different views on what should happen? And does it not take them then back along racial lines, perhaps?
Well, the irony is that during the public participation process, the majority was not in favor of changing the name of that town. But despite that, it's just being overrun, it's just being overruled, and doing what is the financial implications for each and every person, every business in that town? They have to change their addresses, they have to change their letterheads, etc. And in the meantime, we can't provide service to them. So you can change the signage in the town. I'm telling you that the people will continue to talk about Graaff-Reinet. That is what we will tell our children. You cannot force loyalty on people if you don't want to accommodate what's important for them as well.
Pooe, what do you think the rejection then by the FF Plus? I'll allow you to respond, but let me also put in my question to you as well, Mr. Pooe. What do you think that the FF Plus position, encouraging people in Graaff-Reinet not to acknowledge this proposed name change, will mean for race relations in Graaff-Reinet, where it is a multicultural community in essence?
Same way, we will not accept that the name of our colonial conquerors should be used in our towns, in our spaces where we are living. It's a very interesting notion that Mr. Mulder is saying that they don't want to accept this change because this represents them. It represents colonial conquest. That's Freedom Front represent colonial conquest of African people. Surely, if that is the case, it's unacceptable that we have such people in this country. South Africa is a democratic state, and South Africa should have the majority being determining factor of what is happening, whilst recognizing and accepting that there are minorities in this country. And importantly, changing of names cannot be treated as a luxury item on our national agenda. It cannot be. You see people like Dr. Mulder recognizing the importance of the Constitution and praising the Constitution as it exists now. And one of the things that the Constitution emphasizes on is transformation, change in this country. And we can't like one side of the Constitution and not like the other. You can't be selective in like in the Constitution. Currently, he's the minister in the cabinet. He represents that Constitution. He took oath for that Constitution, but suddenly chooses not to accept that in that Constitution there's transformation. In that Constitution, we need to respect the rule, the views of the majority, and we cannot have the conqueror's history being prioritized. And I'm not sure if Dr. Mulder is telling the nation here on your program that a Freedom Front represent the dominance of white people over the black people, represent the white conquerors who colonized this country. Okay. If that is the case, we will not coexist with such people in this country. We must coexist, we must live with minorities, respect the Constitution, respect the fact that there must be transformation, respect that Robert Sobukwe and many other leaders were representatives of a true democratic nation. Remember, even Sobukwe did not even represent what we call multiracialism. He was amongst the first people to pronounce that the PAC stands for one race, which is the human race. For us in the PAC, in our PAC vocabulary, the white thing or black, as it refers to people, does not exist. And if people want to continue along that trajectory, for us as the PAC is unacceptable. Okay. And they can continue calling that town Graaff-Reinet, but for us, legally, constitutionally, that town now is Robert Sobukwe Town.
Pooe, Dr. Corne Mulder, my thanks to you both, gentlemen. Thank you for being on The Full View this evening, talking about the proposed name change, Graaff-Reinet, a town in the Eastern Cape now, soon to be called Robert Sobukwe Town.